Good morning.
Morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year with Easier Habits Live, your favorite 8 a.m. Central business live stream. So I'm Alec from Easier Habits.
And I am Meg. I am a global English communication coach.
All right, and we had some great work over the break. We actually got some results from your form, and we talked to a marketing consultant, at least a first initial consult. Hopefully there will be more to discuss. And we'll talk about what we learned and maybe our goals for the new year coming up. But first, the communication tip.
Woohoo. Also, is our mic pointed there that way?
Oh, yeah, we can
There we go.
shove that more in our faces.
The joys of being live. Okay, so our communication tip. This was an interesting thing that I've kind of noticed over the last, you're looking bright, so pretty. A little bit, but it's the idea of how much time it takes you to say things. I've, really had it kind of in my face how long we're doing our things because it gives us, this count. But most people don't generally time themselves talking. And there are different instances where you need to speak, in a very short space of time, and other ones where you need to speak longer. And understanding kind of how much you can fit into any given time, I think, is important. So someone yesterday did a wonderful presentation in English that was like between 10 and 15 minutes long. And it was beautiful, well thought out and everything. And I thought, wow, man, she really got the pacing on this and the timing and everything on it just right. And that's hard to do without, practice, because frequently if you're winging it, you'll start getting into something, you'll go off on a tangent, and then you'll end up not having time to finish everything. I remember this from school all the time. Teachers would get off on some weird tangent that had nothing to do with the lesson. It was interesting and I learned a lot, but we ended up never being able to finish our lessons ever because they hadn't, timed it out. This is, public school, so it really didn't matter. But, it was an interesting thing. So when you are getting ready for a presentation, a pitch, or something like that, time yourself, right? And practice saying things in different time spaces, right? If you've got 1 minute, what can you say? If you have 20 minutes, how can you keep that 20 minutes engaging the whole time while still getting your point across? Again, it's a difficult skill, but not one that's insurmountable. So time yourself, practice, and have fun.
Nice. One of the things that I learned from joining a speaking group was the idea of keeping a story journal.
Yes.
And so you keep a story, you can put maybe all of the details of the story, at least enough for you to remember them, but highlight the key ones, and then you can actually practice telling the story at different lengths. So like, what's the 1 minute version of the story? What's the 5 minute? What's the 10 minute?
Yep. And
when you get to the point where you have like 10 minutes, you really just have to string only a few stories together to put together, a presentation, a talk of some kind, etc. So even if it's fairly long, right? You could easily weave a 60-minute talk around 3 10-minute stories. That's half your time right there.
Yep.
So story journal is a great way to start codifying what it is you have. And as a business owner, actually, for marketing, you're going to need to be telling stories. For pitching, all of that stuff, you're going to need to be telling stories. So client success stories are great ones. Why you started the business that you did, or your evolution, things you've learned, surprising lessons. What else? Failures are also a good one that we often don't show, and part of the reason for having this podcast and live streaming is so that we're forced to share some of the things that work or don't work and how we respond to them, because you don't get that story, or you get a highly sanitized version of that story very often with entrepreneurs telling you after the fact what they did.
Yep.
So those are all good things to put in a story journal so that you can practice speaking to a time limit.
Yay.
So, all right. So over the break, you actually got some form submissions.
I did. It was so exciting. So I have people on my mailing list. Now I need to start mailing stuff, to my subscribers, it's really exciting for me. And I actually haven't checked it because we've, taken some time off. So I want to see if I have more now at this point. Check that.
So, and it sounded like at least a couple of them you already knew, so you were getting those people from not the ads, but from the people you knew particularly.
Yeah, but when I was looking at it, there was at least one person I didn't know, which that was exciting to me too, because you know, it's like, oh wow, I reached someone that I, you know, wouldn't have otherwise without doing this campaign. So it was good. It was a nice little success boost.
Yeah, better than a big fat zero, but yeah, and I find like that's true. That's why most people start out with their networks and referrals, etc., is because that is by far the easiest place to find people motivated and who already have some trust because they know you or they know a guy who knows you.
Know a guy who knows a guy.
Exactly. So, but there's more trust there than just an ad for putting in your email. But you know, as a result of our experimentation with this, we decide, and the fact that like, all right, so we've got something out there. It's hard to get people to sign up for an email list, even for a free resource.
Right.
So at that point, it's a good time to talk to marketing consultants, and which we did. And actually, I might reach out to them and see if we can record a conversation even.
That would be so awesome.
That might be fun, or certainly we can present what we learn from them. When we do, their initial offering is basically a map of like the types of keywords that are being searched, ads that your competitors are running, and some suggestions for like how you would build out different types of content. It's not done for you, and that's another thing where you can actually pay them to build out a certain funnel. Yeah. So
there was an interesting thing, you know, talking about the you know, DIY, do it yourself versus done with you versus done for you, and those kind of three different levels of service, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah. So this is the DIY version. It's generally the cheapest because it requires the least amount of effort on the part of the consultant or coach or whatever person. And, you know, then being able to take that and thinking, well, what are my DIY, DWI or whatever, your DWI?
Done for you?
Yeah, done with you.
Done with you.
Yeah.
Are the main ones. So, and then there's do it yourself.
Yes, that's DIY.
Yeah.
So, you know, but thinking what my offers are for other people. So I mean, there were so many different levels on which this was a really helpful conversation because I was able to take, you know, the things that they were doing in session with us and thinking, okay, well, how could I apply this to my business? And, you know, in addition to like the actual offering of what they were proposing. So I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't even occur to me to bring up the whole DIY spectrum. But like that is something that you see a lot in offers and service, especially with service providers, is thinking about like the different levels of service.
Yeah.
And the thing it really helps you with is the DIY gives you an entry level offering, something affordable for more people, wider audience. It can build trust, it can build value. This is still not strictly DIY because they're doing work to give it
it's
to
true.
that.
Yes.
Like it is actually customized.
It's DWI.
Versus, it's DWI versus like a true do-it-yourself thing would be like
a course
or a course or you know, giving the map as a template and saying fill it out.
Yeah, have fun.
Right. So that's a fun thing to keep in mind, and it's just like, oh yeah, that is something I feel like I should have talked with you at some point or brought up at some point that I just didn't think to.
And again, it's not stuff that I don't know, but it's one of those things that you can't keep everything in your mind all at once, right? And so being able to kind of come back and remember, oh yeah, there's this thing that I haven't done. You know, let's add that to the list of things to try. And sometimes you'll realize there was a huge gap and like, okay, not just let's add this to the list, like let's prioritize this. But then, you know, having an outsider's perspective really gives you that, you know, kind of all of the different options for moving forward. So,
yeah. It's good stuff. And one of the things that I learned was that... I mean, I think we were presenting to him the features, the types of thing we were pitching.
Yes.
And I had in the ads talked about the benefit pitch with confidence or, you know, pitch more often because you would have confidence, etc.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had other benefits for my own funnel or whatever. So it's not like I didn't have any of those. But when he was talking about that and giving examples of the types of things that he normally does with clients, I realized like, oh, I could pitch more, I could pitch harder. There's a lot of results stuff that we have to figure out.
Yeah.
If you're early on in your client base and you don't have a repeatable model where you could just say like, 2x your outcome or money back or things like that, right? Then you have to kind of figure out like, all right, how do I phrase results in a way that is enticing and reliable and honest. And I think one thing I have a hard time with marketing is that marketers often pitch the results as like the best possible results, i.e. results that you're unlikely to get. And so I really do like the people who either you could do it if you're newer and you don't have quite the repeatable process yet, you could base it on studies. And the great thing about studies, if you're appropriately leveraging the study, not just like saying that you're doing it. Studies tend to be lowest common denominator, right? They don't report the outliers. Sometimes they specifically include the outliers, but they say, X% of people do this much better, right? And so that tends to be a great, reliable way to come up with outcomes. And then I'm always impressed by the marketers who can say, like, everyone who does X, as long as X is reasonable, and that's where I think there's a lot of shady people who asterisks, right? That like maybe X is like something only 1% of people ever do, or X excludes a large portion of people who can't do something. But everyone who does X or get this far, gets these results, or our average student, etc. Or
everyone
80%.
who invests $20,000, in this thing will get that. Well, yeah, if you have $20,000 to invest, but so definitely, I don't like that either. And so, but it's, if you can, again, find that reasonable ask. And that's the thing that I'm always like kind of shying away from in my own stuff, because I'm like, well, I can't guarantee anything because of things and reasons, but because I don't like absolutes, right? There's always things that can come up, but it also means that sometimes I'm not quite as like, look, this can happen for you, this will be a thing. It's like promising those results. I talk more about, again, that process, because really it's the process that gets you the results. And so I'm trying to focus on that, but people don't care about the process so much when they're doing something. They want to know, well, what am I going to get out of this? So
well, and that comes back to the value formula, right? The value of an offer, as defined by Alex Hormozy, is the result and the likelihood of getting that result on top, right? And so they want a sense not only that they get good results, but that those results are reliable.
Yes.
And there's a lot of ways to play with that in marketing. For instance, the people selling you on like, here, take this course to get a new career. For instance, they always show like the average Joe or the most disadvantaged person, right? Like the single mom having to work for her family or something like that is a very common person they put in their marketing, in their ads, their testimonials, not because those are necessarily reliable results most people get, but most people feel like, all right, if that person could do it, then
I can do it.
Then I can do it. And that always, like, I always have a big question mark, because it's like, well, but what's the whole story there? Even, is there something they're skipping over, like that they have friends who randomly bought $1,000 of their inventory or something like that, which, like, oh, if you don't have those types of friends or don't want to do that to your friends, maybe this won't work for you. Like a multi-level marketing stuff. Anyway, so, but yeah, this is something where, like, if you, it's a tricky game to play, I think, if you want to really put yourself forward and offer people good results, and then you're competing with people who are like giving you like legit unrealistic results that are likely a product, only partially due to whatever course or whatever it is they're selling, and likely maybe even mostly due to other factors, which is why like so few people get those results. So that's a tension. But I think but your weapon against those people, I think, and the advantage you have if you're really going for representative results is that reliability. If you can say, 90% of people double their income or something like that.
That'd be awesome.
Right? And, maybe it's not double their income, but, 90% of my clients have doubled the number of pitches or the number of contact outreaches they've done in the first month of coaching.
Yeah.
Right? That's fairly reliable. And it's like, look, if you double your amount of effort, you're generally going to at least double your results. You have to be getting some results for that to work in the first place, right? You can't double zero, unfortunately. Or you can, but it's not very effective. But yeah, so that's something that is tricky. And as you're starting out, one of the reasons to be very thoughtful about how you interact with clients and design stuff rather than just meeting their needs or what they're asking for you, like try and get them to state a specific goal. And that was another thing I noticed about this consultation.
Yes.
Is he specifically wanted to know, like, what is our goal?
Yeah.
And I think it was acceptable or whatever, potentially interesting to him. But there's a chance, especially if he's got a lot of clients and like our goal is too modest or, something, it's not, something he wants to compute to his average. He might say like, sorry, I don't think you're looking for, and I actually talked to people like this. I've talked to coaches who work with when I was getting started out with like $1 million people, and they didn't specify that necessarily on their website. They could have screened a lot better.
Yeah.
And so getting in on that call, and you could tell as soon as I told that person like where I was at, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
And that's bad form, like, right? That leaves a taste in your mouth. But that idea of like, you might try and intentionally guide people, help people create goals that you can then share as your results.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about that, if you just like, that person wants to learn English, I'm going to teach them English.
Yeah.
I don't care about the results. Then you don't have those results to share in your marketing.
Yeah, very much so. And so kind of reframing the ways that I'm interacting with people right now to be able to have some of those results and, put those on my website or be able to include those in my marketing copy and things like that, I think it was really good. Like, okay, process does beat, whatever, but like also results do matter when you're marketing.
Yeah, well, and there's a benefit to quality of life. Being more confident in my English. I want to work on my English. I want to work on being better at doing this particular thing rather than the results. And a lot of times there are people, a small subset of people willing to pay you for that. It's just hard to reach a mass audience with that offer because most people will not find that compelling versus some results.
Yeah.
And so I think markers of progress along the business path are you working towards results? Right. And even if your client is only giving a process results. I want to do X. I just want to talk with a native speaker.
Yeah.
I just want to get more comfortable with this. Right. Even if they have a very loose framework, helping them establish result goals and move towards that, identify those and move towards those. And then the other piece I think that you get as you mature in your business that's really critical is the inviting people to engage and leaving the ball in their court.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's, as we looked at what we could do, we definitely want to automate things with the funnel, but we came back to basics and we're like, all right, why don't you just reach out to individuals and basically manually be the funnel where you have a series of offers where one is just a tip like, hey, try this out, see if it works for you. If you have questions, then you follow up with the engage, right? Then DM me. Right? Yeah. From DMs, you could invite someone like, hey, join my email list and I'll send you this resource that I have for my email list or, et cetera. And from the email list, the free meeting, et cetera. And so that engagement, but it's really easy without that framework of like knowing specifically what the next step is and inviting them to take that. Yeah. It's easy. And if you don't have clients yet, I mean, I guess feel free to like follow back with someone, but it's easy to spend a lot of people with, or a lot of time with people who are, like you're reinvesting time in them and they're not engaging with you really at all. It's passive. And that's really a productivity and results killer early on. Really difficult. And it is really easy to, on the flip side, give people a one-off value and then,
just not follow up
and lose that connection,
Yeah.
right? And so like the sweet spot, the Holy Grail, is being able to give people value and invite them to engage with you more. And then when you have one of those that works, basically marketing is the automating of that process.
Exactly. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to do today is the outreach. And yeah, there's a lot that I'm like, because, the specifically calling out, people and talking to them, with the purpose of marketing. I have to reframe it in my mind that I know so many people who this is going to help and who are looking for something like this. And so, hey, this is a thing I can help you with, as opposed to like, please buy my course or whatever it is, so it's,
Well, and the idea with this funnel, and this is, what talking to people again and again, what people seem to reiterate, especially is to get attention, is you build trust by having lots of contacts and quick wins, essentially for free or a little effort, like joining the email list. And so it's like when you have multiple points of value you can give them before you ask for anything in return, then it becomes easier to do that marketing versus like, hey, who wants to buy my services?
Yeah, exactly. And so you're already interacting with the people that are interested in your stuff. And not bothering the other people who are not interested. And I think that's one of the things, like I'll occasionally put something out on Facebook, but like I've got family and friends on Facebook as well, that I'm sure really don't care about any of this, and so like I don't want to bug them. And so in a lot of ways it makes sense to, really target it down. But then also as, you are building up your content and your offerings, like you can continue to give these people value, right? With special exclusive content or, whatever it is. And again, it builds trust. It benefits them because they still don't, if they're on your email list, they don't have to buy anything. But if they're seeing you constantly and then they have a need, they're more likely to ask you for that or to refer somebody else to you in that case. So,
yeah. And so I have a question as a coach, which is, so we did about a month of really focusing on your pitch, your offers, building up a potential funnel. We did actually get some people through it. Mostly not people through the ads, but what to you, like, was it valuable to do that before talking to a marketing consultant? And if so, like, where was the value, or should we have gone straight to the marketing consultant first?
No, I think if we had gone to the marketing consultant first, I wouldn't have known what to focus on or, I mean, even really what I could do on my own, because, and I know this is kind of, I don't know, a little bit, not esoteric, but it's a little bit, kind of back, but I learned so much more from failure than I do from success. I wish that weren't true. I wish I was someone who could, do something, succeed, and say, well, I'm going to keep doing that thing. But I generally have to do the failure option to realize, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, let me do something else. That stays in my brain a lot longer. And it's not like we failed with what we did. We did have some results and it was good. But having gone through that myself, already before, I think now once we were able to talk to him, I mean, I get the sense that there was a lot of stuff he didn't need to cover in our session because we've already tried it. He's like, oh, you guys know this stuff. Okay, great. I don't have to go into that. So it made our time with him more valuable. It also helped him target, exactly where he could help us more, as opposed to, okay, well, do you know what a sales funnel is? Have you tried, this, that, and the other thing? And, a lot of troubleshooting. We were like, no, we've done that. We need to figure out this very specific thing. And so it made our time with him more valuable. We were able to get more results from that thing, as well as I knew for myself, I think half of the stuff that we've been doing was realizing the effort and focus it takes to do a thing, right? And I know that seems like super basic, but sometimes I need to be reminded of the basics. And so that was really good. And now that I know that, and I have some structures in place, right, I'll be able to actually make use of this thing, this offering from this marketing consultant so that we'll get results, as opposed to if I hadn't done it, then I'd still be struggling to figure out, well, okay, I guess I have to, like do this thing and then focus on that. And I don't know. Now I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yep. And I feel like that is, again, one of the balances that's difficult to get right with entrepreneurship. So you either have people who are DIY all the time, and we did this. It's like, this is the first time I'm hiring a marketing consultant, and I think it's the first time I've worked with you very specifically on the marketing. I think I've done some product development tests or whatever, but
never like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why I was so quick to go for that, is because, like, all right, we've tried, we've got some experience, we know where our limits are.
Yes.
But it's easy to figure out, like, well, there's articles online, I can do everything myself, and really get stuck too long on working outside your area of expertise, when you could jumpstart that by working with someone who is going to be able to focus on things that reliably get results for people, rather than trying everything in every article.
And I think that is the crux of everything, really.
Right.
And especially, just looking at my past several years of working for myself, I know I'm very capable of certain things, but I shy away from those things that I either, don't have experience with, or I don't like doing, or I'm not so good at. And, even if I could do it, right, I've spent so much time spinning my wheels saying, I'm going to do it. It's going to be fine. And so it kind of takes that honesty with myself, like, okay, well, I haven't done it. So, okay. Or I tried and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So, but again, none of this, without actually trying and going out and doing it. And so, I think that was kind of one of the things with asking, you to coach me, is saying, okay, look, I could do this on my own, but I haven't yet. And I don't want to waste any more time, because we don't have time to waste, right? Nor, do I want to spend my time doing that stuff. So it's just easier. So if you have that ability to hire a coach, a marketing consultant, something like that, after you've spent time really understanding the area yourself, it's going to be so much more effective. Yeah.
And so I feel like, the balance is, you want to try something, you want to really time box it, right?
Yeah.
Because you can spend forever. If you're like, I will talk to a marketing consultant after I really understand funnels, versus like, I will get something up now to figure out what I'm dealing with, how long it takes to set up the funnel, what kinds of copy I need, what offers where, etc. And then bring in the marketing coach. Then you'll learn a lot. And I think there's people on the flip side of that. So there's people who try and do it themselves for like far too long. And we're probably in that category.
But we're learning.
We're learning, yep. And then there's people who just throw money at the problem, and it's also easy to like buy a lot of courses, right? But you will get very little out of them if you're not engaged, at least going through a complete cycle of trying stuff.
Yeah.
And so even with this, one of the things that he mentioned, so the first offering and very reasonably priced, was this map of keywords and ads and content ideas, and it was just like a map of like, here's your strategy. It's like a marketing strategy, but none of the implementation yet. And so one of the things I said, that's great, we probably are interested in your help developing funnels, but after you give us the mind map, we would probably like to play around with that a little bit more and just see if we get more traction than we were getting before, and like understand, iterate ourselves a little bit, and then come back, right? Give us that time in between the assistants to actually practice that and really develop it. And that's another reason why we've been leaning hard on the doing those offers a lot yourself in person, is maximize your experience, so that when you do bring someone on board, then you can ask them the specific questions.
Exactly.
You can show them things that are like actually work for you versus don't work for you. Like, I got more interest here than here, etc. And so the value of what you get from it will dramatically increase if you're going through that cycle but the whole goal is not to do that cycle as perfectly as possible. It's really to do as many of those cycles as you can.
Yeah, it's and I always have to remind myself that it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it a lot so you learn how to do it better. And again, that's like the fast failure. Like fail fast, learn, and then move on. And that's scary because that really makes failure a part of the process. And for those who are failure averse, which is nobody in this room, it's one of those things that I'm just learning to accept, and it's okay. And it's, it's what I coach people in every single day. So, I'm learning it still, but I am learning.
Well, and for me, I guess as a coach going into this, I realized somewhat the value of this, of being coached or getting consulting. This is a little bit more along the lines of, I think, what he normally delivers as consulting, and we were kind of trying to like push him a little bit more towards coaching. It was like a half-hour call, but we actually, he was very generously gave us like almost an hour, I think. Yeah. Because we were asking specific questions, like, well, we've tried this, what about this? And got some specific techniques back from him, which was great. And so I loved as a coach, and I really enjoy this, being not something, so I don't have to be an marketing expert. Like, I understand some of the principles. I'm going to point people to, things you could do that would make a marketing coach or consultant more valuable to you, right? Like, I know enough of that, but like, I don't have to be the marketing guru.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to like lay that aside for a bit. I'm like, I'm not the coach here. I'm here to be coached. Yay! And I will give you one plug for coaching, but then I will, in my business tip in just a moment, give you one thing you can do for yourself that coaching often provides people. But one thing that was just nice is like the being taken care of. And I did talk with Meg about this, just in terms of like, we're both not very good at being taken care of.
No.
Just not very much for different reasons, for different family backgrounds and life experiences and job experiences. But we're not good at that. And like, even just paying someone, actually we haven't paid him yet, which was in the case he was just, partially taking care of us, but like, even, buying his service, that is a load off, and there is a value to having someone on your team, and sometimes you just don't have the right person on your team. So I have a friend who is the top salesperson at a tech company. That's awesome. They don't do marketing. They only do inbound leads. And so all the stuff that I'm going through marketing, it's nice to have the advice of another person, but to have an expert come in who's like, I've done these other things. This is stuff I've done with clients. I didn't actually push him very hard on results. And one of the things that I thought was interesting that he said is I'm certified at these things. I've taken $100,000 worth of, marketing courses and whatnot. And I thought it was interesting to lead on that, but like someone who is much farther down this search than I am, and getting someone to take care of that, because I don't have that person in my network. Yeah. And so that's one thing I often do for people as a coach is, they might have the marketing consultant, they might have this person, they might have a friend who has contacts in this area, but they don't have a neutral, encouraging party that has an instructional design degree that knows how you learn and grow and can, help you challenge, like, what's your biggest priority and how do you grow beyond your current obstacle in that area, right?
Yeah. And that's what he has, that instructional design degree, as well as all of this experience. So that's the plug for coaching, but I do want to give you a freebie. This is something that coaching provides my clients. And I realized, listening to somebody else, like, oh, you can get a part of this for free. So this is a kind of a self-coaching technique. This is from Dr. K of Healthy Gamer GG or something like that on YouTube. Yeah. I guess Healthy Gamer was already taken. But he's great. So he is a psychiatrist or psychologist. No, I think psychiatrist, who blends a little bit more towards the coaching space, works very often with people who were like labeled as gifted, but then are kind of burnouts or like addicted to gaming or other things. And so
he's got a good niche, which I admire of him. But he's also just really great in the videos that he has, and I'll put a link below in the YouTube description when I put up this video, because Healthy Gamer is great. But one of the things he said is, and this was a question dealing with how do I manage waking up with a ton of anxiety or anxious thoughts? And one of the things he said is, don't engage them then. He said, schedule a time later to deal with them. And he said, in the moment, like, go for a walk. He said, actually clean your room. And those are two things that are apparently evidence-based for, like, helping you move past whatever anxieties, etc., that you have. It's not that you have to ignore them, but you don't have to engage them and solve them right there. You can kind of work on something and let them, like, spin around in your mind and eventually lose momentum and dissipate, right?
Yeah.
So that was his thing in the moment. But his recommendation is you schedule a later time to deal with those. And he said, working with his clients, that's one of the transformations he noticed, is that they'll hit a place where there's something that would, trigger them or induce stress or anxiety or etc. And instead of immediately going into, like, panic attack mode, they'd be like, all right, this is something I'm going to talk with Dr. K, at the end of the week or next week or whatever. Yep. But you can do that with yourself. And so I tried that this week. And so I've been trying various things to deal with my own anxieties, because I have them, about, like, all right, I don't know how to get a funnel to work. Right? Like, I have, and I feel like a failure, etc. And, I have things that I'm trying to work that fail all the time. I have clients that I get reliably good results for, and that's great.
Right?
But, like, I'm always trying to learn and grow, which is often, involves trying things I'm not good at, and, like a lot of this marketing stuff. So I did 1 week where I tried to journal every night, and that was a hot mess. That just made me super anxious. I didn't really have the time and energy every night to, like, work through that anxiety. Plus, doing it at the end of the day, I always wanted to put it off, so I ended up going to bed later. And so that was a terrible time to put things off, and that cadence was probably too much. So what I decided is my Sunday mornings are a great time where you take the kids on Sunday morning.
Yes, I do.
I didn't do it first thing. I did a walk first. I did some, spiritually grounding practices, prayers, read scriptures, etc. And then I went into several iterations of dealing with my anxiety. So first I mind mapped all my feelings: anxious, guilty, frustrated, as well as, like, grateful, excited, proud, etc. I put all of those, together. I did a recap of, the different areas of my life and how those went. And then I did a journal. This was the meat of it, where I, wrote down my anxiety, and then did, I don't know how many whys I put down. It was probably at least seven whys exercise, and then really dove into that anxiety. And I'll probably talk about that more in future ones, what I gained from that. But to tease future business tips, I got to the heart of my problem with greater specificity than I had before. I was able to resolve that better and create a more confident plan for the future. And I think underlying all of this skill of time boxing, setting a time, scheduling a time to deal with your anxiety, is, one, you can be very focused when it is that time. You can mentally prepare so you're in a better state, like do things so you're in a better state. But I think a huge benefit of doing this, of having a time to reflect on the week, having a time to manage anxiety or failure or other things, is half the value is that teaching your brain it doesn't have to immediately engage anxieties when they pop in your head.
Yep.
Like that practice. And so I was hitting that. And I heard this on Thursday or Friday late in the week, so I didn't even have that much of a week to do it. But even on Saturday, I could feel an anxiety pop in my head, and I'm like, I don't have to solve this. I can try and just keep working through it, or I can take a walk, try and clean my room, and do something like that, just to let the anxious energy spin out. but I don't have to engage with that right now. And that was very freeing.
Yay. Yay. And it's so true. There were so many good things, I think, that came from your review yesterday. It was a really good day just for communication for both of us, figuring out our next steps, kind of a new year and what's going to happen. So I'm sure a lot of that will unfold over our next several sessions, but we're already at 40 minutes. So.
Right. I teased maybe doing our goals for the next year. Maybe we can do that tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Because we're at 40 minutes. But thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe. And we would love to get to a point where we have more people here and people maybe dropping, hellos and questions in the chat so we can form a community of entrepreneurs that are working through the real side of entrepreneurship, the hard work, the disappointments, etc., and supporting each other, not just consuming those like post-market sanitized stories from people after they're successful, which, I find very disappointing after you do a few of those and you realize like, I'm not going to become Elon Musk by doing that.
Dang it.
Or, insert Steve Jobs. Yeah. insert business icon here.
Yes. Yep.
So, all right. Thank you very much. Until tomorrow, make big changes, one small habit at a time.
Bye.